What's happening, guys? Jared Weiss back here on the Jared and James channel. I'm Jared Weiss. If you guys didn't know, that must mean that you're not subscribed to the channel, so you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave a like, drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think of this video. Follow me everywhere. I post regularly to every platform. So check me out wherever you guys listen to content. I'm there. So, anyways, for today's Rabbit Hole Roundup episode, unfortunately, RJ was actually unable to make it today. But when we actually being joined by a very special guest, so this guy puts out incredible content when it comes to Nephilim, like when it comes to all these like hard true subjects out there. He happens to be the imperfect guest, like for all stuff like I always love to talk about in here. So, anyways, without further ado, please welcome Paul Stobbs to the channel.
Hi guys, how we doing? Thanks for having me.
So, would you mind first introducing yourself, like telling the people who you are, what you do, and then like from there, like I want to touch on some of these super interesting deep dives into the Nephilim, the Bible, all that stuff.
Cool, yeah. So I am predominantly a YouTuber. That's what I have done with most of my time and most of my creative things. You can find me at Understanding Conspiracy. It's a channel I started in about 2014, mainly as a university project originally, but it kind of developed
Wow.
into this what it is today, a decade later. And yeah, I'm predominantly known for the person who created a theory, which is based on the idea that what we call a clown today, by a modern Western standard, is a perfectly crafted symbol used to represent the Nephilim. So the series I have is called "The Nephilim Look Like Clowns," and I'm writing the book on the subject currently.
Really? That's awesome.
And predominantly, it's an anthropological study of cultures from all around the earth who have their ancestor spirit worship rituals. And you'll find me go through and show that what they are venerating are, in fact, the Nephilim or the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim by the biblical standard of the history of where the demons come from. And you'll find they all seem to have clown-like features. And my work is basically pieced together the puzzle that nefarious secret societies have indeed taken this concept and created their own version of the costume being worn to channel and venerate spirits. And that's what we call a clown. So it's an occult hidden meaning symbol. Yeah.
Right. So like my first question for you, like to start things off, is who are the Nephilim in simplest terms, and also like where they actually come from, as well as like what purpose were they actually created for?
Okay, so the word Nephilim comes from Genesis, and it also mentioned a few times in the early books of the Bible, post and pre-flood. So the word Nephilim, if you want to break it down into its etymology, into the Hebrew term, it's two terms, Nephil and Nephal, which makes up the plural version of Nephilim. So if you want to look at the meaning between these two words, Nephil basically translates to tyrannical ruler or giant. And Nephal means to fall in a various applicable ways of doing that. So to fall, feller, to fall, falling, things like that. That's generally what it means.
Right.
So if you put those two words together, you get what is known as the Nephilim from those two roots, which basically means a giant tyrannical ruler of a fallen nature. So the ancient Nephilim are giants of the ancient past.
Are Nephilim and giants synonyms?
Yes, in a way you could use them as the same word. Yeah, you can interchange them, absolutely. And they do in translations of the Bible. They do that many times. They replace the word Gibberim with giant and giant with Nephilim, and they play around with those words plenty of times in different translations.
Interesting. Yeah. So now, like, how are these Nephilim like actually created? Like, and then like another question, like, so like, are Nephilim also like the same thing as the fallen angels?
Right. Well, this is something that I try and make clear on my channel quite a lot, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Yes.
So the Nephilim are not fallen angels, and this is kind of a misunderstanding,
misconception,
through the interpretation I gave you earlier that Nephilim has this "to fall" within its name, and people have assumed, well, that must mean Nephilim are fallen angels, but that's not in the book at all. It's not actually said anywhere that that's the case. Nephilim have been explained quite clearly in the book of Enoch, which is a book that some people don't consider canon. I personally do. I don't hold much weight into the later versions, the second Enoch and third Enoch. I think there are more Gnosticized later iterations of the same story with a lot of questionable theology in there. But I think Enoch, which is referenced in the Bible plenty of times as a book and even quoted by the apostles, I think is a legitimate story in a book. And it makes clear in the book of Enoch where the Nephilim come from. They're the product of watchers who had a job of basically looking after humans and watching over them and making sure everything runs smoothly for God. They decided that they thought the daughters of men were very attractive, and they gave in to the baser instincts and basically did something they never should have done, that they weren't allowed to do, which is copulate with human women and create offspring, which became mighty men, as it's described in Genesis 6, the heroes of old, the demigods, the half-god, half-human creatures, the Nephilim, and they became giants, which would just we could not sustain. Humanity could not sustain their appetites, and eventually they stopped being heroes and things to look up to, and they became tyrannical rulers who subjugated all of humanity and even ate them instead. It very quickly corrupted.
That's
creation.
pretty dark. Wait. So come on, is it possible like any of these Nephilim like were actually good-hearted, like and like good-natured, or do you think all of them like turned into these tyrannical leaders and rulers?
I think this is up for debate. Many people would argue it's possible for a Nephilim to repent, but you have to understand the Nephilim don't have a God-given soul necessarily, because they were never supposed to exist. They don't have a soul that's compatible. They're not like us. I don't think they have conscience in the same way a human being would have a conscience. We're triune in nature. You know, we're flesh, we're soul, and we have a spirit as well. You know, and they had a spirit, yes, but it wasn't of God, and they don't have a soul breathed into them as in a flesh spirit combination. Sorry, a flesh soul combination like we do, like God had created us to be. They never should have existed. They don't have anything like that. So I do think there's an issue of Nephilim feeling remorse. I think they had evil in their hearts continuously. I think they were quite proud, boastful, hubris-filled creatures because they were huge. Thought they were better than everybody else, considered themselves a step above all of humanity, more worthy of ruling than any other creature. I think they even got so full of themselves that they thought they could take on their own parents, which were the fallen angels,
really?
the Watchers.
Oh, wait. So like the Nephilim like actually came from the fallen angels, though?
They came from the Watchers. Okay, so the Watchers weren't necessarily fallen angels. They had a job. They were supposed to look after humanity. But they were 200 of them, led by the angel Samyaza and Azazel as well. But people argue maybe they're the same angel. It's up for debate on that. But these Watcher class angels under the leadership of Samyaza basically did this thing, and they make a pact. It's explained in the book of Enoch how they're all kind of talking to each other, and they're like, all right, so we're all agreed we're going to do this thing which we know there's no coming back from. So I think they had a rebellious nature in them. I think they knew what they were doing was wrong and that God would be angry, but I think they made the choice to join in the rebellion that Lucifer was running at the time, to become a part of the angels that were on his side, Lucifer's side, going against God's creation, because I think they were upset that God had chosen Adam over them to be rulers on the earth. So I think, and there's if not them, people have argued that they had a reptilian type race around on the earth at the time, which were like humanoids. And it's possible, why didn't God choose the reptilian humanoid? Why did he create this thing called man instead? And why is he letting this inferior man? It's like, I refuse to bow down to this fleshly, lowly creature type of attitude. I'm an angel, I'm above him, I shouldn't have. So all these attitudes were kind of melding together in this weird rebellion that happened. And I think maybe they became fallen angels or classed as fallen angels after they did what they did.
Didn't the Nephilim like start off them as good, and then like their hubris like got to them like after like a period of time? Like, do you think, or
maybe they probably had a period of relative innocence, as they grew, but they grew pretty quick, and I think they very quickly became realized I am different from everything else and therefore better, and it had that attitude about them. And you have to remember as well, they didn't look human, and this is what my theory is all about. They were
Right.
terrifying monsters. Okay, they were
Right.
something else. People were naturally in awe and in fear of these things, so they naturally bowed down very quickly because they didn't know what else to do, and that's pretty much how.
Right.
And when you're treated like that from an early age, I think that gets to you pretty quickly. I think you
Right.
start to see yourself as like God's better than God, and that type of attitude. Yeah.
How big were these creatures
Oh well, the first
size wise?
the first Nephilim were as tall as mountains. They were huge. They were
Uh-huh.
unfathomably enormous. The very
Right.
first versions. It seems like later iterations of these things, because it seems like if you look at other books, not only Enoch as well, but if you look at other books like Jasher, for example, or Jubilees, and they give these hints to what it was like later on, while the Nephilim were around. And I think it seems like the Nephilim created first of all, fallen angels mate with human women, create the Nephilim on one
Is
level.
that story the same thing like as the Anunnaki story, or are they different?
I would say the Anunnaki mythos, which
Right.
comes from the Middle East, obviously Mesopotamia as well, and that region. I think
Right.
it's more of from the point of view of the Nephilim. I think
Okay.
it's the version of a Nephilim creation myth, and I think it's more in support of, and I think you're talking about Nephilim being created, but then they also have this little weird twist where they created humanity as a slave race as well. I don't think that's true. I think, but
Okay.
it's similar stories told from different perspectives.
Right.
I think a lot of lies were being told around this time to the humans about who they were. I
Right.
don't think the fallen angels in the heavens and the Watcher class angels, I don't think they were being very honest with people. I think they were posing as gods, pantheons of gods by many different names. That's where we get the Greek pantheon, the Hindu pantheons, the Norse pantheons, the North American flying feathered serpents, the Australian rainbow serpents. I think these dragons were everywhere,
Right.
and
Yes.
and this dragon worship cults were everywhere. And I think
I'm totally into that
they
also.
yeah, I think they were establishing themselves as gods, like overall of humanity. They wanted to be seen as the only gods above God, and anything to get people's attention away from the one true creator and to make them
Right.
focus on them. So I think they had the gods in the heavens, the fallen angels and the watchers, who were mainly seraphim angels. The watchers, a lot of dragons were around.
Right.
Seraphim means fiery flying serpent.
Mhm.
I believe the watchers were those trusted by God the most, the ones closest to him. And if you read in the hierarchy of the angelic hierarchy, the seraphim are right next to God's throne. They are the closest to him. So I think he chose the seraphim to watch over humanity, and they failed, and they created monsters by hybridizing with humans. So
Interesting.
imagine a fiery flying dragon serpent monster
Right.
mixing with a human woman.
That
That
sounds pretty scary.
that hybrid thing that gets created is what the Nephilim were, and my theory goes, they looked a lot like a clown by our standards today.
So, so now, like, how did you actually arrive at that theory?
Yeah, so it's been developing for over a decade. It didn't just come
Mhm.
to me overnight. It was a puzzle piece thing, and the picture got clearer and clearer until there was an aha moment in 2016. Prior to then, I grew up atheistic. I wasn't raised in a religious household. I
Mhm.
didn't wasn't raised going to church or anything like that. And as I grew into my teenage years, I went more down the spiritualist, Gnostic, alchemical, psychedelic exploration type route.
Right.
I was trying to explore consciousness and find a spirituality, something I'd lacked my entire life, trying to fill that
Mhm.
void with hedonism and anything else I could find in these strange philosophies. And the psychedelic exploration came along with that. And, I had seen some things by taking these chemicals and these entheogens, and I realized there is a spiritual world all around us. But so I was very well acquainted with this whole DMT realm people go to, this circus like realm that are full of DMT jesters that you'd
Right.
see talk about in all these forums, you know what I mean, that
Mhm.
people who do trip reports would talk about. So, by like 2012, 2011, I was really starting to catch my stride in the conspiracy world and started to wake up, and I discovered quite a
Right.
lot of the truth about the controllers in the world, the whole Illuminati stuff. You know, I
Mm.
started at the bottom, worked my way up from there, and you start learning all these rabbit holes,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it was actually
Of
the
course.
end of it was the end of the world in 2012.
2012, right?
That's what got me in, and that's what set
Right.
me off to start looking at, you know,
Interesting.
why do people believe this is what I wanted to find out. And I actually created the channel to understand the conspiracy, you know, for
Mm.
my, because I was doing art at the time at
What was
university.
your first rabbit hole?
Again, it was the 2012 end of the
Oh,
world.
all
It was
right.
the Mayan calendar and all
Mayan
that kind of
calendar.
stuff, you know.
Right.
And like I said, I'd already had this psychedelic exploration kind of Gnostic-y background anyway. So when I came onto
Mm.
the conspiracy stuff, it was easy for me just to get into it and just to roll with it. And I guess I was kind of in the New Age side at the time, but I was never really a hippie New Ager type person.
Right.
I'm not a dream catcher or crystal type person.
Mm.
I never was, you know. I was more like I just wanted to get to the bottom of what the truth was
Truth.
through my
Truth
own
seeker.
experience.
Right.
Yeah, through my own experiences, which is
Mm.
why I seeked spirituality in these psychedelic experiences at the time.
Right.
And I was trying to square it all in my mind, you know, and you know what, just to try and speed up the story a little bit. You know, it got
Mm.
to the end of my degree in 2014, and I had been deep into the conspiracy research, so heavily into it that I kind of kept bumping into the Christian angle, the
Mm.
Christian history, the Christian perspectives, and I just didn't want to go there. I was scared to go down that route. I thought I could find all the answers myself through the New Age
Right.
Gnostic psychedelic route, you know.
Uh-huh.
And I was ruining my life. I was a drug addict, clearly, you
Really?
know,
Wow.
basically. Not like heroin or anything like that,
Uh-huh.
but you know, I was smoking weed every day. I was drinking quite a lot, you know. I was taking things like MDMA on the weekend, you know.
Wow.
I was dabbing, microdosing psychedelics regularly just to
Mm.
experiment, you know, and I was taking harder psychedelics like DMT or salvia as well. And
Right.
it was getting out of hand. Basically, I was destroying my body. I was killing myself in that respect,
Mm.
and my mind too. You know, it wasn't healthy,
Right.
and I was kind of burnt out by the end of 2014. My degree had come to an end. I didn't have any direction or purpose in life. I didn't know what was going on or where I was going to go, what I was going to do in my life. I was scared, terrified, with all this knowledge about how awful the earth is and how
Mm.
it's controlled by this evil cabal, you know,
Right.
who are all satanic, and you know, and I was quite scared in a horrible place, you know, and I'd lost all hope basically, and that's when I decided, all right, because I'd heard a lot about the Christian perspective and angle, and I
Mm.
decided, okay, so if you're real God, I'm giving myself to you. This is it.
Show me the way.
This is it. Yeah, I've
Right.
nothing else has given me the answers. You know, I didn't find
Mm.
any answers in any of the other angles help me. You know, and also it was a cry for help as well because I was desperate. I was on the verge of giving up completely. You know, it was
Right.
I didn't know what to do, and immediately, you know, I felt the Holy Spirit in that moment. I was actually inadvertently baptizing myself at the time I asked this question. I was having a bath in a hotel room.
Mm.
I was out for my brother-in-law's bachelor party, I suppose you would call it. And I was just burnt out, and like I asked God to help me. Then I had a
Right.
bath. I had a bath and felt this rush, and I got out of the bath. I was like, what was that? You know. But from that day, everything changed, and I didn't desire to do any of those things that were killing me anymore.
Right.
I dropped the desires to chase nothing but pleasure and to do these drugs. And since then, I'm completely sober now. I
That's
haven't smoked, you
amazing.
know, I don't smoke weed. I haven't touched weed in
Mm.
about 7 years. I finally quit nicotine at the start of last year.
Wow.
I lowered the strength and went to an
Mm.
e-cigarette 4 years ago, and now I'm off it completely. And it was a long journey, but he saved me that day, and
Right.
I focused on the word from that day. So from
That's
2014 to
that's
2016.
that's awesome. Happens to be like an incredible story.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, so
Sorry. Sorry. No.
during just I'll sum up the story quick now to get to the clown
Mm.
thing, but the point is that led me down the conspiracy route of understanding the Christian perspective to give answers to all of what's going on in the world and why we even
Right.
have a conspiracy. And I started to roll with the channel then heavily after 2014. It's when I really started it up and started doing what I do. And the channel was mainly a narrative of So how do we work together to get to the bottom of this with all these different viewpoints? We have the New Ages over here, we've got the Christians over there, we've got the normie mainstream alt-right type truthers down
Right.
here, and then we've got the extreme liberal left truthers down here. And it's kind of, we all kind of understand we're being controlled by evil
Right.
people in some way, but we all kind of have our own
How do we
argument.
actually
Yeah.
bring everything together?
Yeah, exactly. And I ended up finding the truth in the biblical perspective. I think it's
Mhm.
all about Jesus. I think the only reason we have a conspiracy is because of Jesus Christ and what he did in the biblical history, including the Watchers, the rebellion of the angels, the Nephilim, the demons on the other side now because of the Nephilim and all the, it all kind of fit into place for me. And I started when so I explained to you, I had this past life and
Mhm.
then I was born again in 2014, and then
Right.
I came. Well, I think it was actually 2013, going into 2014 is when I started to do what I do, and I started to get heavily attacked by demons, basically. And this is where
Really?
this is where I started to open up to the spiritual element to all of
Mhm.
this, the spiritual warfare aspect to all the
Right.
conspiracy, because I was personally having these horrible experiences, which I couldn't deny. It was
Right.
like it's happening to me personally. I need to find my way to protect myself and understand what's happening. And so I did. And, I had moments where I had constant sleep paralysis with demons coming towards me where I couldn't move and I had to wrench myself
Really?
awake. I had one moment where I was awake in my
How,
living room.
wait. Like, so like, can you actually describe like some of these like experiences for me?
Sure, yeah. So
It's super
one of the
interesting.
scariest ones I had is I was just in my living room.
Mhm.
And nothing. I wasn't doing anything. I had my dog next to me. It was quiet. It was late in the evening. I was on my own. I was just
Right.
stroking my dog, a little Jack Russell Terrier next to me. I think the
Uh-huh.
TV was on, but I wasn't really watching it or paying attention or anything. I think it may have been on my phone for a second or something, and then suddenly, um, I felt like I was going paralyzed. I started to lose all ability to move my body, and then darkness started to seep in from the corners of my vision, and it started to like the room started to spin in some horrible churning, grinding like way as this
Mhm.
darkness seeped in, and I just kind of just collapsed, and
Really?
I was like, I'm dying. I literally felt
That
like
that's so scary.
yeah, I couldn't explain it as anything else. As I was at my soul was being torn out of me, and I
Oh
was
my
dying.
god.
And it came out of nowhere, completely
Mhm.
unprovoked. I have no idea, I just didn't see it coming, and
Right.
all I could think to do in that moment was just say the words, "Jesus, help me."
Mhm.
And it did. Instantly gone. Everything gone. Back to normal. Full
Wow.
ability to move again. And I was panicked. I was like, "What was that?" What was, and these are the type of things that kept me going and getting deeper into the word as a result of trying to understand what's doing this. And I had this dream one night where an entity with a purple hat and a kind of like a lapelled long trench coat of purple with where it had a cane. He had these glowing orange eyes all hidden in the shadows, and he was coming towards me in this field, and he had these blurring multicolored ribbons behind him, like a Morris dancer would have ribbons around the
Mhm.
maypole, that type of ribbons.
Right.
And he came to me in a dream after I had just had some tea with dead relatives in a garden of some kind. And I
Uh-huh.
didn't I didn't realize it was a dream at the time, but I came upon all these relatives who have been long dead, great aunties and uncles, and
Right.
more recently deceased aunties and uncles as well, and things
Mhm.
like that. And they told me to come and have some tea with them, so I did. And as soon as I sipped the tea, they vanished. The park was darkness. It was like a hellscape. It wasn't the park I was in anymore. And this thing was coming over the horizon I described with this hat. And I got a phone call, and I answered the phone in the dream, and he said to me, "Don't think I forgot about our previous conversation. I'm coming for you now."
Was
And
this wait, so did this guy sound exactly like the demon like from your past experience?
well, this is the thing. Apparently, I had a conversation with this thing in the past, and
Uh
it was coming to collect its end of the deal, and
right.
I didn't know what was going on. But
Uh
in the dream, after he talked to me, I had a memory of another dream I had years ago, and I was in like I was on like a stage with millions of people watching me at a festival, but it wasn't a festival. It was more like a place with screaming and wailing, something similar to the sounds of a festival, but I think I was in hell.
Right.
It felt like a horrible place to be. You know what I mean? It
Wow.
wasn't, and then I'm back in the dream. This guy's chasing me. I run away, and typically the air's like really thick, and you can't move very fast in a dream when you try and run
Right.
away.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
eventually
It
I
happened to
jump
me
up.
and so
Yeah,
many times in my dreams.
it's the usual thing, isn't it? But
Yeah,
he
trap.
caught up. I hit a dead end, and he caught up to me, and I felt like I was going to die again. I
Mhm.
thought this is it, and luckily I managed to wrench myself awake. Another random evening, I have a vision just flood my eyes out of nowhere, and I'm looking up, and I see this enormous psychedelic black and white colored jester monster thing. And I'm in the DMT realm. I know where it
Mhm.
is. I've been there before, so I'm like, I know where I am. What the hell is this? This
Right.
giant entity in front of me, and it was a giant, and it looked like a jester. That's the only
Mhm.
way to describe it. It wasn't wearing silly jester's clothes. Its skin was that pattern. It had a big, wide, horrible, purple lips, grinning mouth. It had this huge alien-like glowing purple eyes. Its skull was all angular like spider's legs. Its
Mhm.
skull was that shape. It wasn't wearing a hat. You know what I mean? But it's like
Right.
something akin to what we would call a jester. I was
Uh-huh.
looking up at this giant for 10 seconds, and then I'm back in the room again, and I'm like, what happened? And these
Right.
things kept happening to me, ever since I stopped the drugs.
Wait.
You
So
know,
like all that stuff like happened to you after you stopped the drugs?
after I stopped the drugs, when I quit and gave myself over to Jesus
That
and gave myself over to God, and I changed myself, I was born again, and all
that's
these desires
amazing.
left me. It felt
Mhm.
like once I had given up the sin,
Right.
the demons came for me. I
Interesting.
feel like it was
Wow.
kind of a if we can't have you, nobody can type of
Right.
situation. That's what it felt like.
That's
Because
super
because
interesting.
you've got to understand, you know, we'll get into it, but
Mhm.
demons fundamentally want a body in order to
Right.
experience pleasure. Okay,
Inhabit the body in order to
yeah. So that's what possession is. Now, true possession isn't like The
right.
Exorcist, where your head's spinning around and cuts all over your body. It's not as obvious. True possession is where you don't even know you're possessed. That's what they're going for. Okay,
Really?
they want to hide in your body without you realizing it. They'll make you do things which they find pleasurable, and they'll
Mhm.
experience that thing through your senses. That's the game because they don't have bodies
Right.
or and can't experience anything without our body or our senses. They don't have hands, a
Mhm.
mouth, eyes, a nose, ears, a tongue anymore. They can't experience any pleasure. They have nothing. Demons are trapped in this place, which Jesus described as a dry place, a place
Um
where they hunger and thirst but cannot quench it. So
Um,
that's
um,
why
s-
they need a
wait,
body.
wait, wait. So, like, what are your thoughts? Like, on this idea when it comes to alcohol, like, actually, inviting demons, like these like evil like spirits, like, into people's like lives, whoever like drink like the alcohol, especially because like alcohol like, is actually referred to like as spirits. Like, so like, what are your thoughts like when it comes to like alcohol, like actually inviting in demons
I
into
think
people's lives?
it can work both ways. Like you said, a lot of alcohol, they call them spirits for a reason.
Right.
And I don't know if it's a case of if you drink alcohol, you bring a spirit in, or
Mm.
if it's more a case of if you already have spirits, they're going to make you drink alcohol.
All
I
right.
think I think it's a chicken before the egg situation. I
Uh-huh.
think it's probably both, to be honest.
Right.
I think doing psychedelics, for
Mm.
example, does open portals and gateways and channels for them to more easily, readily take control of your
Yes.
body because it's kind of like you're giving yourself over to the spirit. So
Vices and stuff like
yeah, so
that,
if
right?
you drink a full bottle of vodka, you
Right.
have willingly given access to a chemical into your body to
Right.
change your state. It's
Mhm.
permission. It's permission. You're allowing it in to change you. So in a
Right.
sense, what happens in the physical, I think, reflects in the spiritual as well.
I think so too.
They're not disconnected.
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll get into the DMT realm as we go
Mhm.
on, and I'll
Yeah.
explain what I understand about spiritual warfare that kind of
Right.
explains this. But what you do in the physical has serious consequences in the spiritual
Mhm.
simultaneously. It's happening at the same time, and the issue is most people in the Western Hemisphere, especially the atheistic types, the secular types, They don't even know there is a spiritual realm, let alone the fact that there's also an army, a legion of disembodied spirits there just waiting for an opportunity to use you,
Right.
And if you don't know they're there, they're happy. That's perfect. It's best for them you don't know they exist, because then you can never find out that you can have control over them and kick them out of your body.
Does some concept also tie into the whole like idea that like the devil's greatest like trick like was actually convincing you he actually didn't exist.
Exactly. I mean, it's the best case scenario for us not to know he exists,
Right.
because then he can operate freely with no hindrances.
Right.
And that's kind of always been the modus operandi of the Nephilim too, the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, which
Mhm.
are demons. Okay, so again, this is kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier as well. A lot of people think fallen angels are demons. It's not true. For demons are specifically the disembodied spirits of the children of fallen angels, the Nephilim.
Interesting. Right.
Whether an angel is fallen or not, it's still an angel. They are not demons. They are angels.
Interesting.
Okay, they never
Mhm.
change. They're still just as powerful and just as capable as they were before they became fallen. Fallen's a title. It's not a state.
Right.
Okay, they're not in a different lesser state now that they are fallen. They may have
Mhm.
been kicked out of their first estate, which is heaven, but they're
But
still
that
on
doesn't
earth.
actually make them
They're still
right.
powerful. Yeah, they're
Mhm.
very powerful. They are interdimensional, beyond our abilities and our perceptions, and I think they can mess with matter and people in ways Nephilim could only dream of. Okay,
Mhm.
but the Nephilim are specifically bodiless. Well, demons are specifically bodiless Nephilim. Because it's the thing,
Gotcha.
the Watchers were punished for what they did. They created these monsters that were ruling over humanity and eating them. So
Mhm.
God did put an end to this before the flood. The punishment was that these Watchers now have to watch their children, the Nephilim, kill each other, battle each other, because they weren't very
Wow.
smart. They started fighting each other over
Uh-huh.
petty power battles and
Why
struggles.
though?
I'm the better king than you. I
Mhm.
deserve to rule humans more than you. And they started killing each other, and it even says they turned on their own parents as well. And so that means the Watchers had to kill their own children who were trying to kill them. It was just a mess. And then after that, those Watchers were bound in chains in Tartarus, done, until the
Right.
final end times revelation, where the pits open back up for the final revelation, and that's the Abaddon who comes out of the pit, is the leader of the Watchers, is Samyaza, it's Apollo, it's the same person, okay, it's the same angel, shall we say, the leader of the Watchers. So that's what happened to them, and that's even before the flood. So that was kind of boxed off quite quickly before the flood. But the thing is, those spirits of those Nephilim who all killed each other,
Uh,
they remained on Earth. They didn't
how
leave.
though?
It's just it's
Uh,
kind of it's an issue of having an immortal
soul.
spirit. Yeah,
Right.
that's what they got from because don't forget we didn't eat of the tree of life. Remember that.
Right.
As soon as we gained the knowledge of good and evil,
Forbidden
God,
fruit.
God stopped us from going to the tree of life, lest
Right.
we live forever. Because the issue is, if we did get it, when we died, we too would get stuck on Earth and keep going. Do you get what I mean?
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
we get
yeah.
we get stuck in this DMT realm. So he kind of saved us from that happening by not allowing us to eat that second fruit. Okay.
Mhm.
The thing is that by virtue of the Nephilim being this half divine angel thing, they kind of had that already. And that once they physically died, spiritually, as a spirit, they continued. They just continued. They never left. They never went anywhere. They didn't. It's appointed for us, as it says in the Bible, to sleep when we die until the final judgment. They
Mhm.
don't have that courtesy. They just remain awake for eternity in what it could be defined as hell, because
Right.
they're in this place where they hunger and they thirst and have desires and wants and needs, and they can't do anything. They don't have a body. And that's a demon by any
Right.
standards. That's why we have demonic possession. That's why legions of these spirits end up in one body. They do anything they can, to cling on to that minor little bit of pleasure they can gain from us, and that's why Jesus came, to give us that authority to cast them out, to
Right.
say you cannot be in here. The Holy Spirit is in here, not your spirits,
Mhm.
and that's A lot of people don't realize that, but a lot of his ministry was him going around casting demons out of people for this very reason. It was that final finishing off what was started when the Watchers had to watch their children die. Okay, so now we have demons everywhere. Well, Christ came and gave us authority over them. So it kind of finishes the war, you know? But the problem is their job now is to make sure we, well, don't find Christ, don't realize we have that authority over them, or if they can get away with it, make people not even believe they exist. Do you know what I mean?
Is that also like a part of the reason like why the quote unquote people who are in power these days are so like focus on like keeping us like distracted like keeping us like doing all these low vibrational activities and like all that type of stuff is actually because like all those low vibrational activities like are actually more conducive it's like allowing in the demonic possessions and whatnot.
Yeah, you're giving yourself over to certain spirits, which allows
Right.
them in, absolutely. So the
Right.
lower basic instincts are what they're all about. They're all about pleasure, hedonism,
Right.
satisfying those urges that they just can't quench themselves. They'll
Mm.
do that through you. So they can get as many people as possible doing the most depraved, pleasure-centered things, sensory-centered
Mm.
things, rather than focusing on the spiritual, the higher things.
Right.
And that's perfect for them because that's what they want to experience and do. There is no higher thing for them. They're stuck here. They're not going to heaven. They're not going anywhere. They're remaining on earth for eternity
Are they
until, you know,
so like these Nephilim demons like are actually stuck here like forever?
well, until the final
Judgment days.
and then the old heaven and earth just gets, you know, a new heaven and earth is created.
Right.
They'll get thrown in the lake of fire and basically
Mm.
destroyed at the very end of time. But until then, we're stuck with them. It's kind of a
Right.
constant. So, but it's not without hope. Jesus came and gave us authority over them, so they have no power over us. Should we take it? You
Right.
know, that's the point. You know, so it's not all hopeless. They're a defeated enemy, but our ignorance is what fuels them. The
Interesting.
less we know, the more power they have. So this is why we
Right.
have things like secret societies and occulted knowledge. Secret societies are humans who work with them, you know, and
Right.
there's a hierarchy to this spiritual war, like a military. You've got the fallen angels on top, you've got their children, the Nephilim, on the bottom, and then you've got the physical humans below them who answer to each other, you know. And the secret societies, I would say, are the physical human foot soldiers for the spiritual demonic soldiers who
Right.
answer to the principalities in heaven, which are the angels, the fallen angels, and their parents. You know,
Mhm.
it never stopped. They're a tightly oiled machine in that respect. It's a military operation. It's spiritual warfare,
Interesting.
but it relies on our ignorance. So that's why everything's occulted. That's why hidden
Right.
knowledge exists, you know, and that's why you have
Right.
initiations and steps and degrees to learn these truths, you know. And that's why they can drip, feed, and control it to certain initiates to give them that sense of grandiose, I have the knowledge, therefore I have power, you know, playing on the pride of
Right.
humans to keep them within these societies, giving them stuff like power and money, you know. And it's all just a ruse, because ultimately the ultimate power is just having Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit. You defeat them instantly, you know.
Right.
But a lot of these other cultists like to believe that they have some kind of mystical power over the demons by doing the right incantations and making the right sigils or something. But the truth is they have no power over them.
How,
You know,
wait, like so how did like when it comes to like worshiping these Nephilim how that actually get started like in a sense?
It started in the very beginning before the flood. We
Uh-huh.
had Cain's lineage. So you had Seth and Cain. Cain killed Abel, went off and did his own thing and created his own
Right.
lineage. Then you had Seth's lineage. So it was the daughters of Cain, I believe, who created the Nephilim to begin with. It was kind of the enemy of my enemy is my friend situation. And I think
Mm.
the Watchers or the fallen angels and Cain made a deal. And Cain said, "You can have my daughters to ruin God's creation. By all means, go for it." You know what I mean? It was one of those
Right.
paths. And as a result, Enoch, Cain's first son, so there's two Enochs, first of all. This is the bad one. This is
Mhm.
Cain's firstborn Enoch child, okay? It seems like Enoch created mystery schools first. And he's the one who then started to take all the knowledge which Cain had from Adam, which Adam got from God, the seven
Mhm.
sacred sciences, the knowledge of how the universe works, all the first knowledge from when he walked with God in Eden, all that knowledge. they occulted it, they kept it hidden to themselves, and they used it to exert power over humanity.
Interesting.
You know,
Wait. So like, is that like where like a concept like the secret societies like started from? Like as way like him taking this knowledge and then like him hiding it like from everyone else.
yeah, that was the first time it happened, basically. Yeah, and from then on, you've got what we have today, thousands of different ones, all purporting to have the answer, but it all roots
Right.
back to this same thing. This what Enoch did originally with the knowledge which Cain had. And it was you find it was all one big conspiracy. So first of all, the knowledge was occulted by Enoch, but then by the sixth generation, that's when, in the days of Jared from Seth's lineage, that's when the Watchers came along and said, let's make Nephilim, So it wasn't straight away, but you'd find Enoch had already created a lot of cults by that point, focused around sun worship or nature worship, things like that, taking the attention away from God, focusing more on the pagan ideals and the sun,
Right.
let's say, or the moon or the stars or
Right.
whatever it was, anything else but God. Then when the fallen angels, the Watchers, started doing their thing, then you have pantheons of gods to start worshipping. So then you have these cults created that worship all these Greek pantheons, Hindu pantheons, all sorts of pantheons, getting the angels
Right.
involved in the religion and creating the gods, plural, rather than one god.
Interesting.
And then they had their children, the demigods, which are the Nephilim, you know what I
Right.
mean? So this
Yes.
is this is Greek
That
mythology and
makes
biblical
sense.
mythology are the same, just by different names. I mean, even in Greek mythology, you have the Titanochemy, which is
Zeus.
which is the battle between the gods of Olympus,
Right.
the Titans. Well, the
Yeah.
gods of Olympus are the Watchers who created the Titans who were killing them, and it's a war between the fallen angels and their children. The punishment God made them suffer. It's just from a different
Mm.
perspective. It's just told with a
Mm.
new cultural allegory with different names, but it's the same story.
So
And
wait. So like, based on that, what are your thoughts? I definitely heard like a lot of people who actually claim the Bible like is actually supposed to be some allegorical like perspective, but then I've also I've also like, started to like realize a lot of like the Bible should be taken as 100% truth. And so where do you actually stand on that? Like the Bible actually being more allegorical, more on the other hand, totally literal.
well, Jesus did speak in parables to get his point across. Don't get me
Right.
wrong, but
Yes.
that's later on, way after the Nephilim fact. I
Right.
think most of the old history is
Mhm.
good history.
I
I
think
think the
so
old
too.
I think the Old
Yeah.
Testament, especially the
Yeah.
antediluvian stories, I think it's
Right.
history.
Mhm.
And as written from the perspective of the Jews, of the
Right.
Israelites, it's
Mhm.
their history. They're not making it
Yes.
up, and what
Right.
they discuss and talk about as a time before, and they talk about the Watchers mating with women and creating these monsters. Well, that's the same story every other mythos around the earth has. Every other culture, it's the
Uh-huh.
same story. So I think it's true history. I think it really happened. I don't
Just
think it's yeah.
can you just think a lot of other cultures have taken it and put and brought those stories into their own perspectives and
Yeah.
but the stories themselves are actually true. It's just taken and constructed differently.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, so we're talking about Nephilim being created. Okay.
Right.
So the story is, from the biblical perspective, fiery flying serpents, seraphim angels, known as the Watchers at the time,
Mhm.
mixed with human women and created giants. Okay.
Right.
And they created a hybrid creature, which then became the kings and rulers, the builders of ancient civilization. Okay. Let's go
Interesting.
to
That
Australia.
makes a lot of
Australia,
sense.
Australia have this myth of the flying rainbow serpent in
Mhm.
the skies who created the earth, so probably helped God create the earth in the beginning, maybe, or some part of it. They created rain god, thunder god offspring, which came to earth called the Wangina. Okay. And the Wangina taught mankind how to build their civilizations. It's the same story.
Wait. It's then it's also times that times these ideas behind masonry, when the Freemasonry, could this have actually been started by the Nephilim, possibly even?
Oh yeah, I mean the first builders of the megalithic structures were giants.
Right.
I believe it was
Yes.
the Nephilim.
I
That's the easy,
I
simple
think
answer
so
to how
too.
these things were built.
Yeah.
giants made them. It's like playing with Lego to them. It
Yeah.
wasn't a big deal. You know what I
Right.
mean? You have to get all weird about it with anti-gravity technology or
Right.
something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just
All that
giants who were just
nonsense.
playing with little blocks. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that's all it was to them. But I think a lot of these builders, the builders of civilization cults, did come afterwards, especially with Nimrod, who built the tower, try and get to heaven,
Tower
try
of
to,
Babel.
and it just seemed like the Tower of Babel event was trying to recreate a new Mount Hermon event. So it's described that the Watchers were on Mount Hermon, a big mountain,
Mhm.
and that's where the stuff happened to create Nephilim. So it's like Nimrod after the flood tried to create a building tall enough to reach the heavens to do the same thing again. And Nimrod is equated as the first master mason, the first builder, the first one to,
Interesting.
and the first one to gain the knowledge after the flood and then use it to attempt to build a tower to heaven. That's the whole
Right.
point. So he was acquainted as one of the first master masons, I suppose, but it
Mhm.
wasn't really formalized until around King Solomon's period with Hiram Abiff as well, his architect,
Right,
who
and
also had the same knowledge.
like also isn't there also a lot like behind the whole like Freemason like story that ties into like here a bit like as well as like certain like humiliation rituals.
Yeah.
I'm
So
pretty sure.
Hiram Abiff was said to have been beaten to death by 3 men
Mhm.
who wanted the knowledge, and he died with the knowledge, refusing to give it to them.
Okay.
So in the 3rd degree of Freemason, they recreate that event,
Right.
and it's kind of like they pretend they beat the initiate to prove the point that he will keep the secrets. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's to his death. And that if you to give up the secrets, we will kill you, type of thing. That's basically what they're
Gotcha.
trying to say. So they've created a ritual based on that, yes. But people have said, Hiram Abiff isn't a real person. It's a
Mhm.
formalized retelling of people like Osiris or other characters throughout history. But you can
Mhm.
get really gnosticy about it and start blurring those lines and too
Right.
metaphorical about it. He likely was a real person who
Mhm.
had the knowledge and also formalized the system into a secret society type thing.
Right.
King Solomon is seen also as one of the first master masons as well. He also had the knowledge,
Interesting.
and he was the builder of the temple. And
Mhm.
Freemasons are kind of obsessed with trying to recreate Solomon's temple. It's
Why?
kind of
Wait,
it's
wait,
a
wait.
thing they do. Go ahead.
Why is that though?
Sorry.
Why are they so obsessed with that idea?
Because they believe Solomon had the knowledge, and in his temple it was kind of inscribed. A lot of the knowledge was inscribed in the temple of what it means to have a relationship with God directly, or the grand
Mm.
architect of the universe, as they would call it. Don't forget, King Solomon had the ring from God. He had power over the demons because of it. He used demons to help him build the temple as well.
Okay.
And I think it's kind of an idolization of the first Mason, the first
Right.
temple, the first one to build a temple with
Mhm.
with the power over, through the knowledge he had, power over the demons. And that's kind of what secret societies today
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
They promise power by working with demons. And so
Right.
it's kind of like just an
That's
idol in a way.
interesting. Right.
He's idolized by them as a
Mhm.
integral figure in the creation of the first secret societies.
Right.
That's all it really is. There's not much more to it than that,
Right.
and
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
they mystify these characters a lot, like
Mhm.
for sake of allegory and story about what it means to be a mason or a builder of culture and civilization, modeled
Right.
after the original builders of culture and civilization, the
The
Nephilim.
the Nephilim.
You know what I mean? That's it.
That
That's kind
makes
of the hid. That's the secret. That's the secret.
Mhm.
So for example, I'm talking about the Nephilim looking like clowns. So it's
Right,
fundamentally
yes.
based off that first thing I told you, that a hybrid between a snake and a human would look insane. Okay, it wouldn't look like a human. You always see these images of Nephilim everywhere on YouTube videos. It's always like really
Right.
big, hench-looking, Conan the Barbarian-looking men with huge pec muscles, big long
Right.
brown hair and beards, bulging biceps. It's like they're too human. That's not what they would have looked like. It's likely they would look like a mix between a reptile and a human. So let's break that down, shall we? Then we'll talk about
Mhm.
clowns
Yes,
along with it.
yes.
So first of all, a clown in the Western world, as we understand it, the base is white skin, red hair. That's the
Mhm.
base of a clown. Okay,
Mhm.
you just from that alone, you don't really have a clown, but that's what most clown is. That's the template. Okay, well, that
Right.
funnily enough is the common descriptor to describe all of the Nephilim. They had porcelain white skin, and they
Mhm.
had red hair, blood red hair, crazy shining red hair. Often it was
Right.
gold as well. They have gold hair as well. That's another common one. But fundamentally, it was red with white skin. Even most modern encounters we have where people meet giants, like the Paiute Indians of North America, for example, who had to deal with these cannibalistic giants that they had to kill and go to war with.
Right.
White porcelain skin, red hair. You know,
Interesting.
the giant of Kandahar incident is a really popular one in the circles. It was a really pale skinned, red haired giant. You know, that's kind of just the base. That's the base of any Nephilim creature. And I think they inherited this from Cain's lineage, because people have argued what the mark of Cain is for a long time. But there is a book called the Book of Lamech of Cain, which was released by the Vatican only 2 years ago, actually, which gives the perspective of Cain's lineage during the antediluvian age, the pre-flood time. And his great 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 grandson, like 6 generations down, is called Lamech. And Cain and Lamech is like, why do we have porcelain white skin? Why is this is our curse given to us from our great grandfather Cain? We have this. We look like vampires. So we have white skin like this. You know what I mean? Not like me with a bit of pink and red. We're talking white, paper white. You know, and they were like, you know, this is the curse we got from our grandparents. But it's like, and he's trying to go on a quest to find out who did Cain marry exactly to create all these people. And it's kind of like, you can go on forever about the Book of Lamech of Cain, but one thing it tells you is that the mark of Cain was porcelain white skin. Now, that would match up with the descriptions of the Nephilim if it was the daughters of Cain who had this porcelain white skin who mated with the Watchers. So that's kind of, I think that's where the white, I think that might be where the white skin comes from.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, just that alone. And the fiery red hair, I think that's a fallen angel thing. That's a fiery flying serpent motif. They were called the glowing ones in other cultures. You know, North American cultures refer to them as the glowing ones as well. I think they had like an aura about them because they were half angel. I think they had this glowing, pearlescent, shimmering thing going on. You know what I mean? Like the vampires in Twilight had shimmering skin. I think that's true in a sense. They had this pearlescentness to it, because don't forget, a reptile mixed with mammal skin, reptilian skin, mammal skin coming together, it would be like a
scaly, right?
It would be scaly but flat at the same time, with like a shininess to it, and it would just be so bizarre. And I reckon, you know, if you look at any snake or reptile or lizard, they're very colorful. They have a lot of patterns all over them. They're very psychedelic, colorful creatures. And I think the Nephilim not only would have a base whiteness to them, I think they would have had this psychedelic colored reptilian style patterns all over them in some weird way. You know, even maybe black and white check is a really common one. If you look at the underbelly of a common British corn snake, it's black and white squares going all the way down, you know, checker patterns. Snakes can have those patterns, and I think maybe the Nephilim did too. But when you look at the costume of a modern day clown, it's nothing but these psychedelic fractaled colored patterns and these stripes and lines, you know. So the Nephilim would have looked like clowns not only by virtue of the clown costume being very similar, but also by the virtue of the white grease face paint and the red hair. Now let's get into the facial features. Lizards or snakes, they can dislocate their jaw in order to eat their prey. They can get around it and just keep going down and down. They can have a very wide maw. You know, and I think the humans, the Nephilim, would have developed that same feature and therefore had very wide, grin-looking mouths, lips, very thin, wide lips, like a huge, big Joker jester smile from the front. You look at the front of a viper, it looks like it's smiling at you because of the nature of how wide his mouth is. It wasn't really smiling. It's just the way the mouth rests. But I think that's, again, a clown feature as well. Big wide smile. They got it from mimicking the Nephilim with a big wide smile.
Interesting.
Now remember that snakes don't have lips, but we do. Now imagine big red lips on a big wide smile mixed together. I think that's what the clown. That's the clown makeup, the big red wide smile. It could also be metaphorical or symbolic for the cannibalistic nature of the Nephilim, eating humans all the time, having blood around the mouth. It could be that, you know, but it also could be just a very literal feature. You know, a reptile with big red lips would look weird, like a big smiling clown monster in front of you, you know. So they had big eyes, huge eyes. Again, like serpents have these big bulging eyes. You'll find, you know, I think clowns often put makeup on to exaggerate the size of their brow ridges. They make them look really tall, don't they? And that's actually often painted in with blue shadow. If you do that, paint big black lines and then color it in blue. If the clown closes his eyes, it looks like it has giant blue glowing eyes because the Nephilim also had big, giant, glowing eyes, multicolors, many colors. And I think they also had a reptilian slit rather than a big round pupil by virtue of being half snake, half human. Clowns often paint a slit going down the eye as well because everything about a clown is a perfectly crafted, designed, sculpted symbol to metaphorically represent Nephilim features. And there's a purpose.
Wait. So then, like, based on that, how did clowns first come about in like our modern culture?
Sure. So we'll go through the history of that and explain exactly why we have it. So first of all, just to quickly summarize the clown features, all being references to the Nephilim. We've done the face, with a big wide smile, the slits down the eyes, the wild hair, the elongated forehead or the skull cap. Nephilim have found elongated skulls everywhere. They're Nephilim skulls. The Nephilim too would have had big, long, thinner, long stretched out skulls. And that's why clowns have these skull caps on as well, to accentuate the height of the head. Clowns often wear really big shoes because they have giant feet, because they're giants. Clowns wear stilts quite often to represent how tall they are, because they're representing giants.
Interesting.
It's all tongue-in-cheek references to Nephilim features. So that's boxed off. That's why the clown looks like a Nephilim and why the Nephilim would have looked like clowns. Okay, they're very similar in nature. A clown is a caricature of the real deal. Okay, that's what it is. It's like a cartoonified version of what the Nephilim truly would have looked like. Terrifying monsters to behold, really psychedelic, weird-looking things, okay? So let's go into the history of why we even have a modern clown and how this happened. So originally, this all comes from something called the Commedia dell'arte movement, which kind of developed through the Middle Ages up into the 16th century, where it really became public again. Prior to that, it was a relatively underground movement because of the highly Catholicized Europe. It wasn't really allowed to have these performances. Street art and theater performances were considered something of the devil at the time. So they were a very underground culture up until about the 1600s, that Enlightenment period where art flourished everywhere again. And this is where we kind of start to see the first real proto Western clowns become a thing. Okay. Prior to that, yes, every culture has had a clown-like buffoon character one way or the other. Of course they have. Greek theater, Roman theater, they had their own versions, the Sanios.
Jesters also, I guess.
Yeah. All throughout the Middle Ages, there were jesters, absolutely, which were like courtly jesters and fools for the kings and the courts and the rich people. The ones who were allowed to have that kind of thing during the Middle Ages, you know what I mean? Like no one else was. So a lot of these performers, which came out of Greece and Rome, after the collapse of Rome in like 500 AD, they found a lot of their work by becoming jesters for kings and private shows, because they weren't allowed to do public theater shows anymore. That's kind of how a lot of these jesters came about. Out of work actors trying to find a gig to keep themselves fed. So a lot of them became the court jesters. That's where that phenomenon kind of arose. But even then, their clothing is only really modeled after the king. They have the fake crown, the scepter, the pompous clothing like the king would wear. They were meant to keep the king rounded, weren't they? Mock the king. They were the only ones who were allowed to denigrate the king, type of thing. But they had very little to do with Nephilim, the jester image. It wasn't really connected then. Okay. And even then, going into the past, there's always been this thing called clown societies. And, the idea of a clown-like backwards person in a society being a very important religious figure has always been around. It's always been there as a means. So I think there's always been like a connection to the Nephilim through certain societies and cultures. I mean, the Heyoka, for example, is an ancient symbol for North American tribes who have this clown character with black and white stripes all over it. Wear silly red shoes as well, funnily enough, But they're venerated in their culture as extremely important, necessary figures in order to keep society working properly.
Interesting.
And they become like the shamans of the group. And these are known as clown societies. So they've kind of always been around. But the Western clown isn't that. It's something else, okay? So this is what I'm trying to explain where we got our image from of a clown. So our image comes from something called the Commedia dell'arte movement, which came out of Italy after the collapse of Rome and traveled all throughout Europe. And it was a group of traveling actors who would go from city to city, putting up a quick stage, putting on a quick improvised show with a group of stock characters. People would give them money, they'd pack up and go to the next. That's all they would do. Okay, that's called the commedia dell'arte, and they did that for a good 800 years. Okay, they were
Wow.
and they developed a lot through that time. Many troops arose and grew out of that time, doing their own thing, inspired by them. But the stock characters pretty much stayed the same. There was maybe 8 to 16 characters, and they were all based on characters people could relate to. The rich man, the soldier, the policeman, the daughter of the rich man, the servants, the clown fool-like character, or the drunk, the town drunk. They all had their own stock version, you know what I mean? And they did it by wearing masks. Really grotesque, horrible looking big nose masks with horrible angle faces, And they were all in their own way a type of clown. They're all comedy characters. They all had a role to play in the comedy, But there was one specific character that kind of got added in the 1600s, and he was a new character that got added called Harlequin. Now, this is the first true proto-clown. Okay, so Harlequin was modeled after Arlecchino, which came out of the Bologna area of Italy, the Mediterranean region. And he was he was also a servant. The servant of the rich man is the role Harlequin played. But Harlequin was kind of fused. The image of a jester-like creature was fused with the image of something called the Wild Man of Europe. So these traveling groups picked up an extra character because everywhere they went in Europe, they all had this weird tradition they did every year around winter period called the Wild Man tradition. And they all dressed up in horned beast, hairy, psychedelic colored patterned clothing and had a wild party. And then they fasted afterwards for 40 days. But they all dressed like these hairy, wild, Bigfoot looking horned beast monsters called the Wild Man. And it's everywhere. It was every country in Europe spanning thousands of miles. They all had their own version of it with different styles and ways of doing it, sure. But it was always the same. It was this representation of a demonic monster. And that's what they modeled Harlequin after, the Wild Man. So Harlequin, the name Harlequin, it not only comes from, it's pronounced Arlecchino, so Harlequin. In it's Italian, they call it Arlecchino. Arlecchino is based off a French Wild Man character called Helikins. So Helikins is a very huge giant with a club covered in hair who had a band of monsters who followed him everywhere. Demons who followed him everywhere. So he was a Nephilim. He was a Nephilim creature, okay? A giant Nephilim monster. And Harlequin's clothes were modeled after the way people dress like this hairy creature. And it's multicolored, patterned patches all over the skin with tufts of hair sticking out. So whatever these wild men looked like that these people were modeling after were pretty colorful creatures. And they reflected that in the Harlequin character. So Harlequin becomes a member of the commedia dell'arte, and he plays the demonic role. His character is the demon. He's fast, he's fleet of foot, he can barrel roll and flip-flop all over the place like he's flying. He's kind of like Mercury of Greek mythology, and he's also slightly modeled after Mercury, which comes from the Roman Greek traditions through the theaters into there. And he has the slapstick, which is supposed to be the club of the Wild Man, but he has this stick, and he slaps the stage, and the whole scene changes magically. He has magical powers. He's kind of beyond the play. He breaks the fourth wall all the time. You know what I mean? He's supposed to be the demon. That's what Harlequin plays in these early 1600s plays. He plays the demon. And then as hundreds of years pass into the 1800s, and then we'll stop at the 1800s for now. Harlequin had changed in that 200-year period. He had become a lot less demonic and became a lot more foolish, a lot more stupid. He started to just chase after the daughter of the rich man. So most of Harlequin's acting, his character would play the role of stealing the daughter of the rich man and running away with her. And then the comedy would arise from the rich old man chasing after Harlequin and his daughter with his servant, Clown. So
Uh-huh.
Clown was a servant of the rich man, and so was Harlequin. And the comedy came from Clown and the rich man trying to get the daughter back from Harlequin, who was running away from her. And it's
Right.
kind of, he wasn't really a demonic character anymore, Harlequin. He kind of lost his
Mhm.
edge, and he became more of a lovesick, doting fool. So that's
Mhm.
kind of, so something happened in the British pantomimes, the British versions of this. They took Clown and made him like Harlequin, a demonic character,
Wow.
to replace
Interesting.
Harlequin,
Why though?
because Harlequin wasn't as fun anymore, and
Oh, okay.
they needed a new demonic energy. So
Uh-huh.
they made Clown that character instead.
Mhm.
Okay, and there was a switch done in the 1800s to make this happen. Now you have to remember, Clown up until the 1800s wasn't a particularly special character. He was made what's his name? Poirot was the French version of the clown. So
Mhm.
every part of Europe had their own kind of stylized version of the comedic characters, but the French version of clown. Don't forget they had Harlequin, which is pretty much the same as everywhere else, but the French version of clown was like a really sad, pathetic thing that everyone felt sorry for, and
Right.
he's and Poirot wore the white cone, the big white rose with the big black pom poms, and he played like a sad character who always
Mhm.
wanted to get the love of Columbine, but she only wanted Harlequin, so he was sad. That was kind of
Mhm.
his thing. He had the tears coming down his eyes, big sad expressions. The sad clown thing came from Poirot in France. But Britain went the other way. They turned clown into like a drunken, loud brute who was eating sausages and drinking beer and stuff. And they
Right.
found like, oh, well, this version of clown is better. It's
Good
fun.
luck.
It's
Right, yeah. So like a lot of people probably starts like find this clown a lot more entertaining.
yeah, exactly. So they jumped on the opportunity, and
Right.
this is where the conspiracy gets into it. Okay, so this is kind
Mhm.
of the politics of the acting of the time. Okay,
Right.
Clown didn't dress like a clown today. Clown originally just dressed in a plain white servant garb, no color, just white, and it was rags. It was droopy. It was loose. It had nothing special. He wasn't supposed to be noticeable. That's the point.
Really.
The French clown added black pom poms, but that's really it. Still white,
Mhm.
still baggy, still boring. Okay,
Mhm.
so the British clown kind of started to go through a different change during this period, and this is how it happened. So a man called Charles Dibdin Jr. Okay, so remember that Charles Dibdin Jr.
Mhm.
took control of Sadler's Wells Theatre in 1799. Okay, just the turn of the century for the 1800s. Okay,
Right.
and he decided, I'm going to change the costume of the clown for the first. This has never been done in hundreds of years. The clown's
Mhm.
costume has not changed much in hundreds of years. This guy comes along and decides, nah, I'm going to dress him like a multicolored psychedelic looking monster out of nowhere.
Uh-huh.
And it's never explained why he did that anywhere, just that he did. All
Wait,
the
wait, wait,
historical.
wait, wait, wait. But like, why did this guy have any power though? To actually do that.
He became the managing director of the theater. It was
Mhm.
under his control how the shows went. He
Right.
was controlled everything. The power was given to. He was hired by somebody called Richard Hughes, who
Mhm.
owned the theater, but he didn't
Mhm.
really take part in managing the actors or anything. He hired somebody else to do that.
Mhm.
So Charles Dibdin Jr. came along and was hired to do that.
Mhm.
Now, this is the thing: Charles Dibdin Jr. is the son of Charles Dibdin Sr. Charles
Right.
Dibdin Sr. was an incredibly famous music writer, playwright, poet writer, musician of the era, who was also a Freemason member of the Lodge number 2926 from Leicestershire.
That makes
Okay.
perfect sense now.
All right. So
That all
Charles
makes
Dibdin
sense.
Sr. was an incredibly famous person of the day,
Uh-huh.
the most famous musician of the day, like an extremely powerful music media mogul of the
Mhm.
era. You know what I mean?
Right.
He was the big dog of the time, and his son was given the privilege of taking over one of the most important theaters in London of that time
Uh-huh.
too. And his son went on to change the clown to dress like what looks like a demonic monster.
Right.
And no one knows why. It's never explained why he did it. Just that he needs to make his mark on the industry, so he did it. Okay, but I found out why. This is what my book is going into, and this is what all of my research is about. It turns out the Dibdins loved India. Charles Dibdin Sr.'s brother, Thomas, was a member of the East India Company, which is the British Navy of the time, who was colonizing India. So they were taking over East India, around Calcutta region, going into it. And they were basically colonizing India. Britain was taking over India at that time period of history. They were just getting their foothold there. And Charles Dibdin's brother, Thomas, was there all the time. And Charles Dibdin Sr., his brother, visited, regularly, spent time in the newly colonized areas of India. And they brought back with them a lot of knowledge and information, as a Freemason would, about the demonic lore of India. They brought it with them. They brought the iconography back with them. And I believe his son probably had the exact same knowledge, the exact same information, who took over the industry, of the theater.
That makes sense.
And it seems like, and I've looked into this, and you can watch my videos about this, and I've shown the comparisons. It seems like they've modeled the new costume of a clown after a Rakshasa demon of India. They dress the same on the temples. They're wearing the same clothes. They're wearing the same patterns. And the Rakshasa demons of India are Nephilim by biblical standards. They're exactly the same. They're the same story. They are they're like snake-human hybrid monsters and giants, and they ate humans, and they subjugated mankind. They became the evil kings and rulers. They ate humanity. They have these big, wide, horrible grins with sharp teeth, big bulging eyes, psychedelic colored skin. They have it all. They are the Nephilim. And the ones that are on the temples in that whole region, going up to Thailand, to the Philippines, all the way down to Bali, they all have this representation of a Rakshasa demon, and they dress like how a clown was dressed from the temples. And I've showed it in the video. They're identical, and that's clearly where the inspiration came from, to dress the clown character like a demon in order to replace Harlequin, who was no longer had that edge of a demonic character. Clown became the new demonic character. Harlequin took a back seat, but both characters, Harlequin and Clown, modeled after demons. Nephilim, specifically. The Wild Man of Europe for Harlequin, the Rakshasa demon of India for Clown. So clowns, fundamentally, and by the way, Joseph Grimaldi, the actor who wore the costume, he is called the father of all clowns. He is given all the credit. Everyone thinks he created that image. Everyone thinks he invented what a clown looks like. They call it the Joey clown, and all other clowns afterwards copied that style. All the way up to today. The style hasn't changed much, okay? That's where we get a modern image of a clown from. And Joseph Grimaldi is given all the credit, but he didn't create the image of a clown. It was the son of a prominent Freemason called Charles Dibdin. Okay, but that's not really told in the history books. They don't tell you that. You can go and find it. You can go and find all this information. It is there. It's documented. But any book about clowns gives all the credit to Joseph Grimaldi all the time. And he was just an actor. He just put on the costume. He had nothing to do with creating the image of a clown. You know what I mean? And it said later on, a few years later, he made some modifications to the image to make it his own. To make it his own.
Did he though or no?
What's that?
I'm so sorry. Did Joseph Grimaldi actually make any changes? Or no?
I don't think he really knew. I don't think he knew it was modeled after a demon in any way when he wore the costume. But the changes he made is he made the makeup a bit more exaggerated,
profound, I guess.
Yeah, but the makeup was already there. But he made it a bit. He made it a bit more, because this is the thing. Every clown has their own style. And there's a thing called a clown index, all right? And you can't steal another clown's look. It's kind of like a rule in the clowning world. Once you make your image of a clown, that's yours, and it's like a sin to copy it. No one else can copy it. And what they do is they paint an egg with the makeup of a clown that you've made, and they put it in the index, and that's it then. You own that image from then on. That's your clown, So Joseph Grimaldi basically made his own. his own version of the thing he was already wearing, which was this Rakshasa demon dress. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that's all he did. But he didn't create the psychedelic image of a clown. Like, it was this Freemason's son who, and let's be honest, his son was probably a member too. There's just no
Right.
record. There's no record of it,
Probably.
but but his son was probably a member too,
Yeah.
which is why that change was made. If not, he was doing it on behest of his father. He was doing it for his father either way, you know. And yeah, that's where we get a modern image of a clown from. It's literally modeled after a Rakshasa. And if I didn't need any more confirmation, after I had made all of these connections myself, just through reading the history, looking at the histories of different cultures, making the connection through my years of research of following all these ancient Hindu cultures, Bali cultures, and I just knew I just saw the patterns and put the pieces together. And then like 2 days later, somebody sends me a random email and says, "Yeah, I watched your Rakshasa video, and if you go to season 2, episode 2 of Supernatural, an American TV show, which I've never seen, by the way, I've never seen the show. I don't really watch TV.
I've never seen it either.
It turns out that episode is specifically about a circus clown who gets children to invite him into their home, and then he eats the parents.
Wow.
That's kind of his game, all right. And it turns out, you know, spoiler alert if you haven't seen this, it came out in 2006, by the way. So this is way before any of my research.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It turns out they discover this is a Rakshasa demon who goes around eating people. And he looks like and in the show, he looks like a clown. So they were telling you years ago in media the truth.
Wait. Remember, like, does the show actually mention anything when it comes to the Nephilim?
No. Just the two main characters are like demon hunters, aren't they?
Right.
That's the shtick, isn't it? And they find out in this small town these people are going missing, and they go and investigate, and they discover in the end that this Rakshasa demon is posing as a clown in the circus in order to get children to let them in their home so they can eat people. You've got to let the demon in. You've got to give them permission, type of thing. You know what I mean? But whatever. That's all like fictional stuff added on top of it. You know? But the point is, they linked a clown to the Rakshasa demon in that show. I mean, they've made that connection perfectly, and it's like they know the knowledge. You know, these people that make these shows already know all the occult hidden
revelation
stuff.
of the method.
Yeah,
right?
So they've put it in that show, thinking no one's going to understand the connection, no one's going to get it. You know what I mean? But I've figured it out. Like, I don't know, 10 years later, like 15 years later, I make the connection on my own. Right. And it's like the history clearly shows. Yeah, the first clown in Britain, when the costume change happened, it was modeled after Hindu demons. Yeah.
Right. Wait. So, like, what do you actually think of the purposes, like when it comes to like hiding the history behind the Nephilim, like as well as behind the history behind the clowns too?
Well, the purpose is that it's actually no simple thing to dress like a clown. It's not a fun situation like they've made it out to be. Okay, so this is where my work predominantly tries to explain that, you know, these cultures around the world, you know, and there's many, have what was called an ancestor spirit worship practice. Okay, it's their ancient old religion, and what they do in their rituals is they dress like ancestor spirits, as they call them, in order to be possessed by them. That's the point. That's the goal. The goal is for power, for information, for knowledge. Okay, because they believe that. These ancestors, they call them, they don't mean it like we do in English. Okay, they don't mean grandma or granddad. They don't mean your brothers or sisters. They don't mean long great grandfathers. They mean ancestors as in ancient builders of their civilization, the ancient old ones, the old gods. That's what their ancestors are. The ones who created their culture, going way back to the beginning. The Nephilim, the ones who built the megalithic structures, created the infrastructure, ruled over them, subjugated them, made humanity a slave race of some kind. You know, those ones, that's who they're talking about when they say ancestors. Okay. And to dress like them, they dress like psychedelic, multicolored, crazy pattern clown things, just with their own cultural differences. But it's always the same. It's always the same, and usually it comes with whiting up the skin in some way with chalk paint, painting the lips red, adding polka dots all over their skin, putting on a big feathery red fiery headdress of some kind, a lot like what we would call a clown by
Clown.
Western standards. Wild red hair, white skin. It's the same thing. Now, in these ancestor spirit worship cultures, they dress like the thing to be possessed by the thing, to gain power from the thing.
Right.
West, when we dress like a clown, what do we think we're doing? It's just a bit of
I'm
fun for the
doing something
kids.
funny, right?
Fun for the kids, right? It's nothing,
Right.
but that's not the case. If they know what they're doing when they dress that way, okay, that's great. They know. They don't even hide it. They tell you that's what they're doing. Just
Yeah.
because we're ignorant of it, when we do the same thing, we're doing the same thing, whether we're ignorant of it or not. We're allowing them
Interesting.
to take over our bodies. Now, this is the secret. You'll realize this now I've said it. This is what all famous musicians do, artists do. Anybody who's in a position of some kind of creative power of some kind in the industry, the secret isn't having talent. If you ever thought it was about being a good artist, throw that out the window now. The
Right.
real secret is to dress like a psychedelic clown monster. If you do that, you will be elevated to the top. Okay, you will be. And that's a good example is David Bowie.
Right.
Straight away. Red hair, pale white skin. He got the basics down, didn't he? Red lipstick, psychedelic fractal color clothing of some kind. He's dressing like the Nephilim in order to channel the Nephilim, in order to put the Nephilim in positions of authority over humanity again and worship over humanity like they were in the past when they were kings and rulers. All he does is become a channel for them, so then they can live vicariously through his body and his life, and he's rewarded for that with fame, fortune, adulation. Gets his house, gets all his money. That's the point. They get stuff for doing it.
Yeah.
But what they also do then is they become an idol that other people want to emulate and copy.
Yeah. So it's like someone's just like all ties into the whole concept when it comes to celebrity worship. Like
Yeah.
so it's like how many kids can go to these concerts and sing along to all these demonic lyrics. Like and then like in the same breath, everyone like essentially worshiping the people like who are like on them stage and stuff.
Exactly. And this is not, but the thing, people then look at them and their idols and go, I want to be like them. So what do? They dress like them.
Emulate them.
And now you're getting more people dressing like the Nephilim, which in turn
Wow.
opens more portals for them people to be easily possessed by them. Because the thing, as we mentioned at the start of this podcast, what you do in the physical realm has effects in the spiritual.
Right. Yes.
If you mirror something in the spiritual realm, you create a portal. Okay? By mirroring them, by copying them, you are bringing yourself closer to the veil and creating a thinner veil for them to get through. You're creating a channel. When you dress like the thing, the spirit, you're channeling the spirit. That's what all these ancestor spirit worship cultures do. And they dress like clowns to do that. They just don't call it a clown because they don't know what a clown is by our Western standards. They have their own way of doing it, and go to my channel, watch my entire series. There's like 43 episodes, and I go through all the cultures all over the earth and show what they dress like to do their things, and you will start to see the pattern. They all look like clowns.
That's so
and what the secret societies did in that period of time is they introduced into modern media the theater of the age, the most popular form of media of the time, the theater, the pantomime. They introduced a demon and he became incredibly popular because the actor was so brilliant and funny and hilarious. Other people then copied him to be like him. And then from that day forth, the image of a Nephilim demon was then popularized in Western media. And what do they call it? We call it a clown. But that's not what it's not fun for the kids. That's just the occult hidden meaning that they want you to take. They want you to take it as it's just a bit of fun for the children. That's called
so interesting.
That's called the exoteric understanding. That's what they want. That's what they want the profane masses to know. Esoterically, secretly, hidden meaning stuff. It represents the Nephilim, and it's used as a tool to channel them. Okay. So this is the thing. Why do you think Shriners exist with their own clown sects Every Shriner sect has a clown section where the members have to dress up like clowns, and they say it's to go and entertain the children at their Shriner hospitals. Okay, but the truth is, it's because they're channeling their gods.
Wait. So can
channeling.
actually,
Go ahead.
so like, how much of like Halloween like it ties into this concept also?
It does. It really does. Every year you'll find they'll popularize the clown in modern media in some way. They'll bring out a new clown-related monster or film, or a new Joker will come around, or something like that, in order to popularize the idea that you should dress like a clown. They'll do a new reboot of Pennywise or something like that, or they'll bring a new Harlequin movie out, or they'll bring a new Joker style out in some way, or they'll make a new Joker killer like Art the Clown from the Terrifier movies. They'll always pump a new clown every year in the hopes that people dress like them. Wow. The more people they have dressing like these things, the more channels they're opening up. And you'll find, if you want to get really controversial with all this type of stuff, there's a particular group of people who are very anti-God, very, let's say, liberal-leaning, who have all coalesced together into a collective, who are very colourful, and multicolored is kind of their thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like to colour their hair a crazy colour, dehumanize themselves, shave themselves in some way, clown themselves up, some might say. It makes you wonder, what's the spirit behind this movement? When you start to understand the Nephilim looked like it, you can start to see what's coming through, manifesting into the physical. These are reflections of one another. And it's a know your enemy situation. Once you know that demons look like clowns, you can start to understand why we have a clown world today. You know what I mean? You can start to understand these things a bit better symbolically. I mean, what really solidified this for me, what set it off, was in 2016 we had the clown sightings. Do you remember them?
Wait. Did that have to do with like the clowns like come on these subways or something like that?
Yeah, they were everywhere. They were just appearing on street corners and on the edges of forests. They were just standing there looking menacing with like balloons and stuff. And it was called the creepy clown sightings of 2016. And all the news media was picking up on it. Like all the small networks, even the big networks, were all broadcasting on the box in the corner of the room. Killer clown sightings everywhere. You know what I mean? And I thought it was so bizarre, because I realized, like, well, the media doesn't show you anything unless they want you to see it.
Yeah.
It's all controlled. So I knew at that moment, along with all my other research into biblical history and obviously my experiences with the psychedelics, seeing the jesters in the DMT realm, the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, all this type of stuff, I kind of made the connection then that the clown's a symbol for something. That's why they're showing it on the box. That's why they're making people see it on the TV right now. They want you to see that the clowns are returning or something.
Yeah.
The clowns are appearing everywhere mysteriously. Well, if clown means Nephilim, then that's symbolically represented. The Nephilim are returning. The Nephilim are going to start to appear into our realm again. You know what I mean? It was a symbol.
Yeah.
It was a message for the initiated who know what that symbol means. And
well, like, and then also like taking that like one step further. So like in 2019, like the new Joker movie came out. Like, and then like the next few years, like everyone was like dressing up like as the Joker. I mean, like, you actually see like the past like few days, like there's actually been like it's like one story that's like going around like everywhere, like on the mainstream news, like talking about like the idea like of like these giants like walking around Miami. Yeah. So like, what are your thoughts like when it comes to that the whole story going on right now?
I've seen snippets of that in my own Telegram group. People have been posting about it and stuff. And I think they're trying to say a kid set off some fireworks at first or something is what I saw. I think the story keeps shifting about what was really happening there. People are saying I saw giants and all this type of stuff, and I don't know. I'm always weary when the media picks up on something like this or it's shown anywhere.
Same here. Right.
The thing is, I don't think they can physically manifest in our world easily. I think they're disembodied now. They manifest through us as channels, the Nephilim do. But I do believe there are cryptids all around the earth, which are physical and real monsters. And I think these aren't Nephilim. These are sightings of these physical monsters, for example. I
Mhm.
think they're more likely remnants of the humans who genetically engineered themselves
Okay.
just before the flood.
So wait. So like, based on that, what are your thoughts like, when it comes to say, of like, the giants, slash Nephilim, like possibly even like going beyond like the ice wall, like possibly. Have you ever looked into that or no?
Yeah, I mean, it depends how you want to perceive cosmology. If it depends if you want to understand that the outer rim of the Earth, if there are more
Right.
lands beyond it, if you want to go on
Yes.
that
Yeah.
aspect. I don't know how much weight I hold to that map that's been going
Right.
around. It was just
Hmm.
created by some random artist on DeviantArt. It wasn't really like a I think it's more. I think you're going into the realm a little bit more there of mythology.
Right.
I like the moon map idea. I've seen a lot going around quite
Hmm.
a lot,
Yeah.
pushing out
Yeah. Yeah.
moon projection. So
Yes.
that implies
I've seen that one
there are
also.
other lands. So it
Yeah.
could be that they're in those lands.
Right.
Maybe. I've heard maybe they're under the earth
Hmm.
as well. I've heard that one.
Right.
Through entrances and holes in the earth. That would go.
Wait. So like, if any of those theories like are true, do you think like that would be like referring to the Nephilim, like, or would that be referring more like these cryptids, who actually came from like similar lineages?
Yeah, I think the OG giant original Nephilim did get
Mm.
killed. That was part of the punishment of the
Oh,
gods. But
right.
then there were like quarter blood Nephilim being
Mhm.
created and half blood Nephilim because the Nephilim had children and their children's children had children. And I think it got watered down and a bit more weird with each
Right.
iteration, going down each
Yeah.
generation. And then I think you start to get things like hairy, tall beasts like Bigfoot or the wild
Bigfoot,
or the wild,
Sasquatch.
well, the wild man of Europe as well. It's the
Uh-huh.
same it's the same creature. So I think they got smaller with each generational
Mhm.
passing. I think they got less psychedelic, more hairy and weird. I think, and that's Nephilim. So I think there's precedents to say that there are descendants of Nephilim around, but they were
Uh-huh.
called something else. They were called in I think it's the Book of Jasher. Um, Nephil were the first iteration below the Nephilim. Then
Mhm.
below the Nephil was the Elio or the Eliud, and then
Mhm.
below them was the Elio, I think. So they kept going down to lesser versions, and it's likely,
Right.
they made it through to the other side. Maybe I don't know,
Uh-huh.
but there was this thing discussed just before the flood, um, in primarily the Book of Jasher. It says there was the mixing of kinds happening. Mankind took it upon themselves, with the help of angels, to genetically engineer themselves, to change their flesh. And it
Right.
says during this time, mixing of kinds. So different types and species were being blended together. All the animals were being blended together to create weird hybrids. And I think humans were taking that choice too. So
Mhm.
when you hear of cryptids like Mothman, that's a human who's mixed themselves with a moth. It's two
Dog
kinds.
man, I've also heard
Dog
of.
man, yeah, lizard people, you know what I mean?
Right,
Like
yeah.
things like this, you know what I mean? I think even things like like the tall greys, perhaps, or the small greys, they could
Mhm.
be frogs mixed with humans or amphibians of some kind. It could be any creature mixed with a human, an owl maybe, I don't know, with big glowing black eyes. I
Right.
think a lot of the cryptid phenomena, which often gets passed off as alien phenomena, is a result
Yeah.
of X-Men. They are mutants. They are ex-humans. They are
In
X-Men. They used to be men. Okay, that's the
interesting.
point. Okay, they are the modern day
Wow.
mutants, which is
Uh-huh.
referenced in comic books. Spider-Man. You know what I mean? Whatever you want to say.
Right.
Like they are the cryptid phenomena is a result of this mixing of kinds that happened
Mm.
just before the flood. And you talk about things people like a marine kingdom, for example, where the main
Uh-huh.
demonic forces are. Well, you think about a flood, the things that would survive that are things like mermaids, half human, half fish hybrids,
Right.
things like that. So
Wow.
a lot of
Never
trippy
thought
stuff
about that.
happened.
Uh-huh.
A lot of trippy stuff happened just before and just after the flood. The knowledge was rediscovered after the flood, and the corruption was brought back in. And the Nephilim did appear again. They were in the lands of Canaan, and Israel killed them and drew them
Mhm.
out. They didn't fully finish the job, and they were punished accordingly for that because they didn't get rid of all of the Nephilim. You know what I mean? And it's
Right.
possible they've continued into the modern day as well. And you get these mythoses, like I said, of the Paiute Indians dealing with tall giants in the forests, of
Mhm.
giants in caves in the Middle East randomly just bursting out and attacking troops or
Right.
soldiers, because they still exist. They're still here, but they're in such
Yeah.
minute numbers to their original form they're so obscure and hidden in places that it's kind of they have to stay hidden or they get killed type of situation.
Right.
They're not what they used to be. But in the ancient pre-flood times, we're talking like Narnia type images here. We're talking Lord of the Rings type worlds with all sorts of different species all over the place. You know what I mean? With these weird mythological creatures flying around. You know, this is the type of realm we're talking about, a realm of magic. You know, it was a weird place. But that's where we get cryptids from. And that's why we have demons. They're the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim specifically. Possibly some of the cryptids became demons in death because they are humans who corrupted their soul along with their body when they did that thing. Maybe I'm speculating here, but that's why we have a lot of this phenomena today. And then I think all these questions can be answered with the biblical narrative.
Yeah.
Clearly.
So like, do you actually foresee the Nephilim like actually returning like taking on like taking over like humanity and stuff, or no?
Well, it does say, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the coming of the Son of Man, which is the return of Jesus. So just before Jesus comes back, it's supposed to be like it was in Noah's day,
Right.
which is when the Nephilim were around and all this stuff was happening, you know, and there was hybridized humans everywhere. So it's possible we might see a recurrence of the same event. You know,
Wait. I'm also speaking with. Like, do you ever watch many of these Marvel movies or no?
Yeah, I've seen most of them. Yeah.
So like, there was actually this one like recent movie that came out. Like, it was Guardians of the Galaxy 2. No, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I think. So like, anyways, the main villain from that movie, like the main villain like sees himself like as like I am God in the movie. And so he's actually trying to create this counter Earth, like he calls it. I mean, but like on like this counter Earth, like he actually creates like these animals that actually perfectly resemble humans, like these animal like human hybrids like actually start like taking on these like awful like human qualities. Like it was like very very interesting. I find like
I've not seen the latest one, but I remember the one prior to that.
right.
It's about a god who creates his own planet and tries to trick him into thinking he's his son in order to
Right.
like
Yes.
you know, right.
Yeah.
Honestly, the Marvel movies, all these comic book universes, they have just all their inspiration comes
Right.
from biblical history. It comes from the
Right.
Nephilim history. It comes from the antediluvian history. This is the thing. A lot of people think like, oh, these artists today, these
So
filmmakers
creative
are
and
so
stuff.
creative, so
Right.
intelligent. Where do they get their inspiration from? They must just be geniuses. It's like, no, they're just retelling old stories. They're retelling
Right.
old stories. They have nothing new to offer. Like
Mhm.
and that's where they get their ideas from. And the point is, our ignorance gives them the power. It makes them
Right.
seem intelligent. It makes them
Yeah.
seem amazing.
Mhm.
And you know, and we give our veneration over to them for retelling old stories about demons and how they
Right.
subjugated humanity. It's all
Mhm.
just one giant beast system. But
Yeah.
in terms of the Nephilim returning,
Mhm.
I said it could be that yes, you know, something similar will happen that was like what happened in the times of Noah. But it could also, I do think transhumanism is working on creating a brand new
Yeah.
vessel for
Mhm.
those spirits to embody. I
Interesting.
think that's the agenda of all the
Wow.
transhumanists. They sell it as you will live forever. We'll create the perfect undying body and
Yeah.
mind with ultimate processing power. That's where AI comes into it. It's like trying to build a perfect brain that can house consciousness, like an AI fueled holographic type code brain, which you can transfer your consciousness into and live forever like a god in this perfect mechanical, robotic, invincible, never dying body. You'll live
Mhm.
like an immortal, super strong god forever. That's the promise. That's Satan's promise. You know,
Right.
you'll be like gods, you know. But I think once we build this thing and mass produce many of these vessels, what's going to inhabit them is not us. Okay. It's
Yeah.
going to be this legion of
Spirit.
demons, spirits, the
Demon
Nephilim,
spirit.
just waiting for a new body. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Interesting.
and that's optimal for them, you know, to
Yeah.
be in this body because who's going
Control.
to how are you going to cast them out of a body that isn't human? You know what I mean? It's kind of Holy Spirit isn't going to go into these mechanical bodies. Right
Yeah.
now, possessing us is not optimal for them because we can kick them out at a moment's notice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We can just say, get out in the name of Jesus Christ,
Mhm.
and then pray, read the
Pray to
word, get
God.
filled with the
Right.
Holy Spirit. The
Mhm.
Holy Spirit will kick it out.
Yeah.
It's cast
Mhm.
out, it's dealt with,
Mhm.
and that's why they need bodies where that can't happen.
Yeah.
So let's create one. And this is the whole point. Secret societies, all the rich, all the elite, are funding and building these things.
Mhm.
Many of them are fooled because they believe they get to live forever. It's for them.
Right.
Some of them at the top probably know the truth. This is for the demons that we're working with. You know what I mean? It's probably
Yeah.
just a multifaceted, compartmentalized conspiracy at the top. But make no mistake, like that promise of immortality is not for us. It's for them.
Is that also like the whole reason behind him, Walt Disney freezing him his body after he died, like, and all that stuff?
Yeah, well, it's no different than the mummies
Right.
mummifying themselves and putting their organs in jars in the hope that a
Right.
future technology will arise that will bring them back to life.
Mhm.
And you have to
Mhm.
remember, many of the ancient rulers of the Egyptian times prior believed themselves to be the descendants of the Nephilim,
Mhm.
the divine right to rule by having angel blood in them. It's the same thing as our
Right.
monarchs today. They believe themselves too to be the descendants of Nephilim creatures and
Mhm.
have divine blood in them, angel blood. So it wouldn't surprise me if what Walt Disney is trying to do there is something similar of,
Yeah.
well, it's like if I can preserve my DNA and my brain in ice, then hopefully one day they can bring it back.
Someone's
I'm
gonna be
sure,
able to bring it back. Right.
it's the
Yeah.
same. It's the same thought process of the Nephilim
Mhm.
dying and creating these. It's like because the idea. Don't forget, if they were Nephilim, these leaders, when they died, their spirits were then stuck on Earth. So
Right.
they preserved the body in the hopes that they could one day go back into it. Do you know
Right.
what I mean? That's the point. So it's kind of, I mean, there's loads of debates as well about
Mhm.
how the Nephilim got back after the flood.
Right.
And we can go into that forever, to be honest. But
Yeah, yeah.
one interesting thing is they were called the Rephaim after the flood, not the Nephilim.
Mhm.
And Rephaim
Why
doesn't.
is that?
It's a different word to Nephilim.
Mhm.
Rephaim comes from Rapha, which is to heal or be healed, or healers or healing ones.
Mhm.
Um, and it comes from another root word as well from Rephaim, and it basically means undead or dead or dead ones as well. So
Mhm.
if you put the words together, Rephaim kind of means a resurrected dead thing. Okay, a
Interesting.
zombie. Zombie
Right.
is a good modern interpretation for it.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? The
Right.
undead, the living dead, which
Yeah.
is kind of like what vampires are in a way. And I think the Rephaim were like giant reanimated corpses of the Nephilim prior to the flood. So it's like they found a way to re-inhabit their old bodies, but they would like a dead version, like a living
Mhm.
dead type version. And it says in order to kill the Nephilim or the Rephaim or the giants, David and Goliath is a good example of this. You
Right.
have to remove the head. You have to remove the head from the body or they will not die. Because the whole healing thing, the healed ones, the healers,
Mhm.
the Rephaim, it seems like they could regenerate so fast. Like if you slice them, it would just join back together and they would heal. You know what I
Well,
mean?
like, isn't that also like something that happens like when it comes to snakes? Like, so it's like, can you actually cough like part of like a snake and then like it's gonna like regenerate?
Yeah, the lizards often lose the tail
Right.
to get predators. So the predators
Right.
have something to eat and they run away, and then the tail grows back. Yeah,
Right.
regeneration is a reptilian feature. In fact,
Right.
Spider Man is about that. There's one of the episodes.
Right. Yes. Yes. Yes.
It's
Like,
about a scientist who wants to regrow his
yeah.
arm.
Uh huh.
He mixes himself with lizard DNA,
Yeah.
and he becomes a reptilian monster who has nothing but evil in
Wow.
his heart continuously and wants
Yeah.
to cause chaos.
Uh
You
huh.
know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
the same story as what the people in the past
So
did to themselves.
interesting. Uh huh.
Yeah, yeah, interesting.
All right, wait. So, like, I might just have two more questions.
Yeah,
So, like, one more question. So, like, the first question, like, I'm after you, like, before I'm letting you go. And so, it's like the first question is like, how old, like, do you actually think the Earth is? Curious about that.
it depends if you want to go by. People argue about the gap theory, where there was two Earths. Like there was an old Earth which got made, form, and void, And then God created this earth afterwards. So, that implies it can go on with thousands upon thousands of years. I don't think it's the mainstream understanding of millions and millions and billions of years. I'm not, we're talking thousands here. And, biblical history alone, they say it's about 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 years, because you got about 3,000 to 4,000 years before the flood. Then you got about 6,000 years of human history after the flood. That's what they say. The Sumerian empires, the Mesopotamian empires, the Nimrod era, you know what I mean, onwards after the flood. So biblical history, if you want to go off that, says it's mainly about 9,000. Kind of. It's hard to say because we don't know how long exactly the antediluvian period was for. And then if you want to get really into the conspiracy stuff today, the big debate right now is that our timeline has had an extra 1,000 years added to it. And it's
like, speaking of sex, this has been like one of my big rabbit holes. Like I've been going down recently. So even looking at like the names like of our months, like so like Dec should be 10, like so like December should be the 10th month, like Novum should be 9, like the 9th month. Sept should be 7th month. So like my timeline's definitely off, and also like even just looking at like the of the moon cycles, like so like based on that, like there's actually 13 moon cycles, like like we call it look at the turtle shell, and like so based on that, like the should be 13 20-day months, and then one extra day for Easter. I'm pretty sure something like that.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Right?
History is a mess. History is and even then, our formal chronology of what we understand history to be was a Calvinist, I think, who developed in the 1600s. We go by his chronology from then on. That doesn't mean he's right. And even though calendars have been changed so many times, other cultures use different calendars. July was added in like, I don't know, like 400 AD. Or so. It was something stupid. Like I don't know where we are or when we are. All I know is it's not a salvation issue. Okay, as long as you understand the basic gospel that Jesus Christ came, died, and rose again for our sins, and he is who he says he was the Son of God, you're saved. Okay, as long as you believe that with all your heart, mind, and soul, you're saved. And that's the point. It's because we can't know, because there is so much corruption, so much hidden, so many lies, that all we can do is hinge ourselves on that faith, of what the simple truth of what he told us. As long as, and that's all we can do, because there's too many convoluted mismatches in history. Nothing lines up, but we do have these books, these ancient books that we've kind of roughly time stamped to a certain period and era, but we don't really know. I mean it's possible. I mean, look at some videos recently, and it's possible what we call the medieval period was the period of time actually when the apostles were alive and when Jesus was around, and they were dressed like medieval people, and they depicted, and there's loads of artwork depicting all these big events happening that are in the Bible. With people dressed in medieval clothing, you know what I mean? All the apostles there, Jesus there, but they're all dressed in medieval attire, you know what I mean, with medieval buildings in the background. And the excuse for that is, oh well, the people of the medieval period, they felt like everything was happening all at once, and there was no such thing as time separation of history. It's like, what are you talking about? People are stupid. Like, are you sure the truth isn't that the people of that time period were painting what they were seeing happening in their time period? And it's kind of like we've only been sold this idea through media that Jesus was in the desert wearing sandals and all this, and maybe that isn't actually what was going on. I mean, this is pure speculation, by the way. This is not me saying this is the truth and everything. I don't know. This is the point. But there's a lot of strange stuff out there when you start digging under history that really just blows everything out of the water all the time. So I don't know. I'm open to anything, but it's not a salvation issue fundamentally. That's what I'll
Gotcha.
say.
All right. So like my last question for him this episode, basically the fact like this is the first week of the quote unquote new year, like so it's like what are some predictions that you have like for events that are going to be coming this year? Like do you think that this is gonna end up being a year of great awakening? Like, or on the other hand, like is our society gonna go like more down like the wrong path? What do you think?
I think there's going to be more exposition of the evil of the world,
Mhm.
purposefully controlled release of information to make us believe. You understand what the externalization of the hierarchy is, right? This
Yeah.
idea that the evil people are going to reveal themselves, but that's the
Right.
point. The point
Right.
is they will make themselves known, so then we will get angry, seek justice, probably get the justice, but they are the fall guys.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
the solution is going to be offered to us as an
Mhm.
alternative, which is basically the Luciferian doctrine, the New Age
Right.
religion, the Gnostic perspectives of things, and we're going to see a lot more of that going on. I think there's going to be a
Mhm.
huge surge of spiritualist craving, crazy people who are going to
Right.
go down a Gnostic spiritualism and reveal themselves more. I think as more people crave the truth, we're going to
Mhm.
start seeing more of the rise of this strange religion, this Gnostic worldview, this very new agey, I am a God type worldview. And it's going to be as a reactionary to the Satanists revealing themselves.
Right.
Again, like Epstein's list being revealed, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
All this stuff is happening now. More of that stuff. The push to make us eat bugs. The push to
Right.
clearly
Uh-huh.
horrible satanic things are happening to us.
Right.
The subjugation of humanity. They're creating pressure for us to react to.
Yeah.
They want us to react, so then we can
Yeah.
offer the solution. Okay, and that's
Outrage.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to see that the
Mhm.
the externalization of hierarchy is in full swing right now.
Right.
More evil is going to come to the surface. We're going to see
Mhm.
more horrible acts happening. All our idols who people have worshipped are going to be revealed to be evil. It's going to just all keep coming out in the open. But that's the point. They want us to feel like the solution is organic.
Right.
You know what I mean? And what they're gonna offer us is this love and light, peace and harmony, Luciferian doctrine. It's not going to be
It's
Christianity,
actually gonna be
okay?
that
And
way.
yeah, and I'm noticing myself now. I just made a video basically talking about Gnosticism, and
Mhm.
it was just an off the cuff 7 minute rant I made in the middle of a 2 hour live show because
Uh-huh.
I was getting irritated with all the stupid comments from Gnostics I was getting. You know what I mean?
Really?
I made this video, and honestly, the vitriol I have gotten from this
Really?
very small but loud minority of Gnostic thinkers who they believe Christ wasn't a real person
Mhm.
and we're not supposed to put our faith in him and expect him to save us. They believe Christ was a metaphor for consciousness that we're all supposed to attain. Okay. And they've got
Mhm.
all, and that's exactly the Luciferian New Age doctrine of enlightenment consciousness. You know what I mean? But they call it
Right.
Christ consciousness. And they also believe that the creator of the physical world is the demiurge, which is an
Mm.
embodiment of evil. They think all flesh is evil and corrupt, and an
Mm.
evil God created this. And what we need to do is escape this flesh, and therefore, they're just antichrist through and through. Okay,
Uh-huh.
it's the perfect antichrist
Right.
religion
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
because they purport to be Christ-like in the nature and use Christ-like words,
Mhm.
but it's complete heretical doctrine compared to Christianity. But they have attacked me hard for simply saying the basic gospel. Okay, and that's the point. I didn't even say anything that controversial.
Right.
Just the Gnostics are wrong. Jesus is who he said he was. Stop trying to make it something it's not. You know what I mean? And
People these days are crazy
but
sometimes.
but that is the new world order religion coming to
Mhm.
fruition, is what I'm
Right.
saying.
Yeah.
We're going to see more of that. The new world order
Mhm.
is here now, and
Yeah.
it's getting deeper and deeper. But that's
Yeah.
kind of the point. They want to create this reactionary movement against the evils of the world. So then people will turn more to these false spiritual answers. And who knows?
Right.
Maybe we'll see an alien invasion while we're at it. Who'll be our savior?
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Uh-huh. Gotcha.
They might chuck that in there, like, oh, by the
Right.
way,
Yeah.
aliens are here and they're here to give us knowledge that will save us. Again,
Right.
it's just the fallen angels revealing themselves along with the
Right.
Nephilim spirits, you know,
Uh-huh.
or our spirit guides or ancestors, as they'll call them, or whatever they want to call them. You know,
Right.
we're seeing more of that.
Uh-huh.
And I wouldn't say it's the end or anything. I don't think all that's going to
Yeah.
happen, you know, but we're just going to see
Mhm.
more of that stuff happening and more of the same. And it's going to get weirder. It's just going to get
Yeah.
weirder, but
Uh-huh.
not dangerous as in we're all going to die. And you
Mm.
know, I'm not a doomsdayer,
Yeah.
but
Same here.
things are going to get weird.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I can say that much for
Interesting.
sure. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, anyways, thank you so much from coming on the podcast. Like this has been like a truly enlightening episode. Like I'm honestly like super like interested like in like everything like you like me and you like discussed during this episode. So anyways, do you want to tell everyone like where to find you and like follow you?
Certainly, yes. Like I said, everything I do is on YouTube.
Mhm.
I do have backup channels on Odyssey. And I do post relatively regularly on Twitter and Instagram.
Mhm.
So you can find me on all those platforms, but really you just need to go straight to YouTube. That's where I do my thing.
Right.
It's my name here on the screen. It's Understanding Conspiracy.
Mhm.
Just type that in. You'll find me. You'll find my videos. And I have playlists on there which have broken down most of my work into different segments. If you like the Nephilim clown stuff and you want to know all the deep stuff, the extra details that I don't have time to go through fully
Yeah.
today, you know, but
Right.
it is all there in that series.
Mhm.
I'm making a new episode currently, which is about clown serial killers as well, to add into all of this. It's an ongoing series, but
Uh-huh.
there's hours and hours and hours of work there spread over 7 years for you to go through.
That's
And
amazing.
it's called the Nephilim Look Like Clowns
Mhm.
playlist. Just go check it out if you're interested in that. But I do talk about all sorts of topics on there. I cover everything. I've been in the game, like I said, for 10 years doing this.
Yeah.
Come join in. And yeah, that's all I can really say.
Mhm. Alright, well, make sure to check out his channel. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Thank you once again, Paul. See you
You're
guys
welcome.
next time.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, anytime. You're always welcome.